First thing is but after I explained it, she doesn't know.
Let me see. You just missed her.
Where'd she go?
She was leaving. Her husband said he needed to go.
They're probably just in the party line.
Type off the note.
I had three cans. That's what I did with that. I didn't make very good.
They are wrong.
My imagination.
They only teach you what they want you to hear.
And it makes sense. You know, it has it makes sense because
There's a show you watch TV. There's a show about a guy who's American whose son is with the book of lies. Some of them give him like the druids or the serpents or the Indians really yes, or Columbus was discover America. He really was. And he takes this systematic scientific there's the trivia article. Let me ask my son what ship that is, because this is something that they've even brought up the Republic. The Knights Templar very much.
We all back into session at 3:17 p.m. Next thing we have on the agenda, number 17, addressed by Senator Bob Wilson.
Our Supreme Court Justice Cannon has just given us a very good explanation of why we need to. Is this loud enough? Everybody can hear it until the ice machine starts? Of how we need to focus on the international solution. I remember one of the first lights that came on 2 years ago for me was you can either act in confrontation or you can act in diplomacy. If you act in confrontation, you'll get nothing. If you act in diplomacy, you may not get all you want, but you'll get some. But confrontation, all it gets is more violent reaction. This judge in Kerrville and all the others are part of a military occupation, even though they don't have a clue about it. They are the administrative people chosen by the military occupation to keep us pacified or to terrorize us into submission, neither of which is going to work. So please, before you decide to do something, consider whether you are about to start confrontation or to act diplomatically. Now, you don't have to be a diplomat to be diplomatic. All you have to do is say, look, let's have a cup of coffee and talk about this. And we can make it a win-win situation, because if this confrontation goes on, it's a lose-lose deal. And we don't want that, do we? And you shake on that. I did this my whole career, so I'm ready for it. I went to the Los Angeles building permit department and say, you need a permit for this huge building, you know. Well, it takes 6 months. I said, well, there's got to be another way, you know. We worked it out. So diplomacy works. You need to be genuine. You need to acknowledge their expertise in their area and all of that. That's not what I'm here to talk about. At some point, not today, we will begin to consider how the Texian Constitution needs to be amended. Our President, Jarnicki, upon taking office, submitted a list of recommended revisions to the Texian Constitution, which was drafted, approved in 1836, and amended slightly in 2007. The problem is that the guy who had the biggest role by far in drafting the 1836 Texian Constitution was a Mexican, who had also been principal man in drafting the Constitution of the Republic of Mexico some 15 years earlier. And in drafting that Mexican Constitution, he copied the U.S. Constitution. Is there anything wrong with the U.S. Constitution? Huge gaps. And I'll name the worst ones. Now, I'm saying this because our Texian Constitution has the same basic flaws. They're not just reworded, they're copied word for word. And these flaws are: the national government is not held accountable to the people in any way, shape, or form. None. And if government is not held accountable and the people can't hold it accountable, you will have tyranny, which is what we have right now. We cannot go through this whole process of regaining our independence and then lose the nation to a monopoly government. Amen?
Amen.
The problem of government is government holds a monopoly. They have a monopoly on the money, and thus the economy. They issue it somewhere through the hallowed halls of Washington, D.C. More money is put into circulation than is needed. And so the dollar you earned 10 years ago will buy about 15 cents worth now. So they have a monopoly on how the money works. They have a monopoly on justice because they control all the courts, so-called courts, which are just administrative hearings. They have a monopoly on education because they started controlling education back in the early 1900s. Fortunately, I got through before they finished. They have a monopoly on the media, as you pointed out. In the 19-teens, they started buying up controlling interest in the major news paper chains. And all they have to do is have a controlling interest so that the managing editor is on their side. In fact, he's their man. They choose him. You can replace a managing editor in a week. And he owes his soul to the company store. And he will print what they want printed and leave unprinted what they don't want. They have a monopoly on the most important thing of all, armed force. Now, is it any wonder that they act arrogant? They have a monopoly on everything. So enough of the tirade. How do we prevent a future generation of Texian senators, representatives, chief justice, justices, nothing personal, and so on, president, from usurping more power. How do we do that? Obviously, the U.S. Constitution was not capable of doing it. Mr. Lysander Spooner wrote hugely on this. Whatever that Constitution is, it was either not strong enough or possibly written in order to cause a monopoly. There is no limit in the Texian Constitution on how much tax can be collected. It ain't there. Well, if it ain't there, you're not going to get it put into law for very long. You see, it's not just that we have to tweak it here and there. It's that we need to look at it from the ground up. And so I pondered this for a long time. And there are some basic, fundamental principles of living in association with other like-minded people. There really are. Anybody hear me okay here? This is crucial stuff. Fundamental principles of human freedom. When we go to work on the Constitution, these are the principles that need to control. So without defining and agreeing on the few basic natural principles that have occurred to many civilized societies throughout recorded history, we cannot write a constitution or articles of confederation that will keep the sovereign power always in the hands of the people, which is where it starts. If we don't preserve the people's ultimate power and authority, then freedom will be eroded and government subjugation of the people will increase. It's just written into human nature. History proves this beyond doubt. So here are some fundamental principles we need to know and utilize as we go into this thing of a constitution of, by, and for the people. Number one, individual freedom is a natural, God-given right of every human being. That's a foundational principle. There are some nations on earth that don't believe that. We believe it. Let's put it in there and make that a basic. And any part of the Constitution or later laws that contradicts that is nullified immediately. Second, no human has a right to deprive another human of freedom or life or owned property. Thus, every human has the natural right to defend his life, liberty, and property from being taken away from him. Number three, because of numbers 1 and 2, no human has the right to delegate to some other group of people any encroachment on the freedom of any other human or humans, because principle 2 denies him that right. So we've got the first three. We have equal rights. None of us can deprive anyone else of their rights, and all of us voting together can't appoint or choose a group of people to deprive somebody of their property. Number 4, any group of humans can temporarily delegate some tasks to a provider of services. And these would be services like roads, picking up the garbage, whatever. That was called government, but that is a very misleading word. It implies that we gave away our natural right to be self-governing. Nobody ever governed me, and nobody ever will. The word government is a myth. It implies that somebody else is wiser and can tell you how to live your life. Okay? To put that another way, as a former libertarian candidate for the Florida legislature, I govern whatever is under my hat. That's all. Number 5, any monopoly on necessary services will always end up hurting the people. Instead, we must allow unrestricted competition among various providers of services. Now, I'm talking about services like defense, services like roads and highways, services like air traffic control, you name it, healthcare, whatever. Services can always be provided by trained specialists from among the people who bid on providing such services for a limited time at a fixed price. So, Mr. Doctor, hospital here, give us a price per head for 5,000 people, men, women, and children, per year. You provide the health care to these 5,000 people per year. That's so much per head. Okay, bid on it. Now, the quality has to be very high. And we, the people, will determine if the quality is high enough. See what I'm saying? You don't need government in healthcare. You don't need government in creating money. Entrepreneurs can create money. The first money was created by entrepreneurs in an ancient kingdom before anybody ever thought of money. A clear contract is written and signed for said services, limiting the powers and defining the duties of these public servants who are under a 1-year or 5-year contract, whatever. You don't need government to do that. Number 6, the best place for most public services to be provided is locally, in a town or township area of one culture. If some services can be better provided at the higher county level, then let people vote on doing that. I'm saying, if you're from a town of 5,000 people, most everything you need can be done locally and has no dependence on Texas the nation or Robertson County or wherever. You see, you just do it locally. If it's going to require cooperation between towns, take it to the county level. Number 7, when that happens, some towns will accomplish local self-rule better than others, which establishes the principle of competition. Competition prevents monopolies. Monopoly is the absence of competition. So when you allow unfettered, unrestricted, unregulated competition, oh, it's another interview. Then, if you don't like the services in your town, you can just move to the town you like best and spend your hard-earned currency over there. So you're voting with your earned money and with your feet by moving. Okay, so that goes on, and finally, if the town over here is growing and the other one is shriveling up, what's going to happen? Then some service provider is going to come into the first town and offer better services. There's nothing that any government has ever done anywhere in the world, in the history of the world, that we couldn't have done better ourselves as entrepreneurs. That's the first one. Any service or security or infrastructure ever offered by a government can be provided better and cheaper by private entrepreneurs. We really do not need a powerful government at any level. Number 9, protection from predators is a controversial subject. During the Hurricane Katrina disaster, there was one very nice New Orleans neighborhood where they realized that there was going to be a lot of looting, and they contacted and hired seasoned Israeli military commandos. The command locked down the neighborhood. Nobody got in or out. There was no looting. There was no violence. There was no destruction or death. You've got people who are experienced in preventing violence and looting. It's the end of the subject. Now, they didn't need them all that long. That was the only place in the whole greater New Orleans area that wasn't funded. They did it by a private contract. Just an illustration, we don't need government to do that. As soon as you say, government, give us military security, you have provided them with a hammer, they're going to beat you to death with it. Number 10, and this will probably rock some boats here. Ideally, the only service that an elected national Texian government would provide is to do the will of the people in any dealings with another nation. We need a State Department. Why? Because the local sheriff isn't going to be very good at dealing with other nations, and is not qualified. See, you don't need a Defense Department. That's the worst thing you could do, because they will turn it against you. They will intimidate you and terrorize you with it. So the rightful job of a national government is to deal with other nations and whatever. Border controversies, shipping, port tariffs, and things like that. So I didn't bring enough copies for everybody, but this will be on the website. Like everything else now, we're putting it on the website, so not only can you all access it instantly, the people who want to know how Texas as a nation would be to deal with can find out on the website. This is what we intend to do. You're totally welcome to critique and suggest improvements to the list, but these are 10 fundamentals that should go into a constitution so that government never gains that much power again. Questions?
I like it. I'm just trying to set my brain. What if somebody just comes over and bombs us? What do we do?
There are big think tanks that are libertarian. One is Reason Foundation, and so on and so forth. A lot of them. There's one right in North Dallas called the National Center for Policy Analysis. First thing I would do is submit that question to them. But off the cuff, the direct answer to your question, take the New Orleans example. Okay, it was a natural disaster. But Texas has closely defined boundaries. We could form a contract with retired military, generals, so on and so on, and say, give us a bid on protecting us against invasion. Now, this is not a 24/7 job. It may happen, it may not happen. And when it's not happening, you can go play golf. You know? But consider this to be an insurance policy. They're ensuring that no attack against Texas is successful. The generals know where to get the airplanes and the bombs and foot soldiers and the whole thing. All right?
Sir.
Now, as an example, Rick Perry, without telling anybody, some years ago, hired consultants from Virginia who were former military colonels and generals to to come down and evaluate the border situation. And he paid them out of a governor's fund that he had access to. He actually went with them and they surveyed the river. And he said, now go and prepare a proposal, how much it will cost. And I will provide the Army of Texas, which is not the National Guard. There is an Army of Texas. And you can take them and train them. But for the first year of this contract that you're going to propose, you are going to give me a fixed price to seal the border. And we will provide troops, armed. 2 years later, some reporter from the Austin Statesman newspaper stumbled on this and was outraged that the governor would have the gall to do this without telling you the newspaper. He's not accountable to the newspaper. And if he had, there'd been such an uproar, it would have screwed up the works. He basically tapped into a fund that the governor has and sealed the border. And they developed these very fast, shallow water, armored and armed boats with helicopters directing the boats. And they sealed it. Nothing's too hard for those who know how to do it. There are people who know how to do things. You just go to them, and they know how to do it, and they do it. It was done. So, the question answered, I mean, it doesn't matter. If they're going to come across the Red River, we've got one solution. They're going to come across the Rio Grande, we've got a different solution. I don't think they're going to come across the Sabine. At any rate.
Let her say what she wants to.
Oh, yeah.
The only reason, this is Ada, the only reason I'm raising my hand is because that position took it out to is going to be dealing with all disasters, man-made, natural, borders, security, disaster, and I think Sally over there as well. So that's exactly what we're going to be dealing with, and there'll be more to come, but I know probably nobody really understood the position I was being sworn into. So that will be dealt with. Just give us some time.
Any other questions on the 10 points?
Yes. I'm not sure you should post that on the internet as we all,
Well, not until it's approved.
yeah, I think you need to make a motion first.
Well, first we have to go through an approval process.
And we need to all have a copy first.
In preparing to come down here, I did not bring my computer. Because it's too important. So I will send it to the Congress. Okay? So once it's approved, we can put it on the website. Any other questions?
Thank you. We're gonna make a jump to Senator Ballard. Had something to talk about on the council.
Okay, I think most of you know that I belong to the Lions Club International, the largest international I won't say non-military, I want to say non-political organization in the world. And 2 or 3 months ago, I was reading a Lions magazine, and there was a club somewhere here in the United States. And one of the members came up with an idea about giving the high school children a pocket-sized dictionary, which I thought was very good at it. Responsibilities, the verbiage on it may have been so small that they'd have to get a magnifying glass to read it, but here again, they at least had a dictionary that they could carry with them. Anyway, about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, this rainstorm hit me. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice if our club that I belong to would give the high school kids a pocket-sized constitution. And so I presented this to the club and got a 100% acceptance. So I proceeded to try and find some pocket-sized dictionaries or constitutions that we could afford to pay for. And after several calls and beating the bushes, I found the company. This is a kind of a standard size U.S. Constitution here. And I bought these probably 50 years ago and paid like, you can buy 1,000 of them for 10 cents a piece, which is very, very reasonable. I gave these things out to lots and lots of people. But anyway, we voted, our club did, to buy these U.S. Constitutions. And one of the things that we liked about the particular one that we bought was it had the first thing in the book was the 10 Commandments. And needless to say, I think our kids need to be reading the 10 Commandments. And most of them probably have never ever read it. And that way they can at least carry it with them. They'll have a U.S. Constitution, have the Declaration of Independence, and all the amendments in the Constitution. And I'd venture to say there's probably no one in this room that can tell me how many amendments have been done to the U.S. Constitution. I see no hands. 26. Sorry, 27. Anyway, these are some of the things that I think that kids need to be reading. And so what I want to try and do, or at least bring this to your attention and your approval and discussion or whatever. And I think it was one of my suggestions that the Vice President try to get the Congress to start working on our Constitution and making the amendments that we need to make to it. And once this is accomplished, I would like to see us put together a pocket-sized Constitution booklet for the Republic of Texas. Secondly, there was a guy by the name of Sam Piker who was on one of the Tuesday night calls here a while back, and he said it'd really be nice if we could hand down some brochures or this or that at some of these 179th birthday of the Republic of Texas, some of these rallies and meetings like the Alamo and Sandy Center and whatever. Wouldn't it have been great if we could have a Constitution book to hand out? Now they can read the Texas Constitution, the Republic of Texas Constitution, and the way it should have been written at the very beginning. Anyway, questions, statements, comments?
Comment.
Okay.
Dwayne Williams, Missouri County District 10. Several years ago, we had a little thing that we did over at the San Jacinto Monument, where we handed out brochures. I got about, I think, 105, 106 handed out before we were stopped by security guards,
Right.
telling us that we could not hand out game wardens. I handed him one, and he said, "What is this?" I said, "Well, if you don't want to give it back." He said, "No, I'm keeping it." And he did. But he followed myself, Ed Brandon, Lloyd Zant, and a couple more people around.
Sam Piker.
Yeah. Followed us around to make sure that we didn't hand out any more.
Well, I knew that this had taken place several different times, handing out different things at different meetings. And I just had that idea, and I think that it would be good for, all ages, especially people here in Texas, to read the Constitution. All the folks in Texas really know what it says. Yes.
Question, not so much for you, but in general. Tom O'Halloran again. Are we amending our Constitution or are we rewriting it?
My understanding is we're amending it.
Are the changes that we're making then, ones Bob listed, going to be amendments?
By the time we're back to all the changes that's needed, we probably are revising it.
Okay.
Well, it's a long way from being in stone yet, but anyway, that's something that, Congress, we need to be working on. In fact, we were supposed to work on it at the last meeting, and we got interrupted. But, all right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna go down to 21 since we're on the Constitution, and the question was raised about how we're going to review it and modify it. We've had several conversations in a couple of different committees, and what I'm going to propose is that, one, this review of the Constitution and the modifying of the Constitution be done by, for, and it's a third one. Of the people, okay? And a suggested way to do that would be to start in these meetings working on a preamble to it. And that preamble, what we would do is we would have one member of the government teamed with one Texan who's not a member of the government. And we would assign some segment of that Constitution or that preamble to them. And we would have a workshop at that very meeting that you would start on that, but more than likely you wouldn't finish it at that meeting. And so we would have these two people on a joint effort to complete that in time for the next meeting, so that it can be addressed again by the whole body and come to agreement on it. Okay? And I think we're going to end up with making a major change to the Constitution. And I think at the same time we'll be getting people involved, wanting to be involved, and having some say about what the Constitution says. The Constitution of, by, and for the people of the United States. If you notice, that was written by a capital P people, and those were people that had property. So that was a select group of them. We want this to be a revision to the Constitution, and as I say, it more than likely will be a major revision to it. And I think that will result in something much better that will avoid many of these issues that Mr. Wilson, Senator Wilson, brought up when he proposed those 10 items. I guess what I'd like to do is make a motion. I didn't have anything in writing. Mr. Branham suggested that I put something in writing. I guess I just didn't get around to it, working on too many other things. But I'd like to make a motion that we consider this procedure, that is teaming a member of the government with a member of the general public and putting together the revisions to the Constitution. So that's a motion.
Second?
Just a quick thought before you guys get into that. Something Senator Wilson did today I've never seen, and a little variation of that I thought was really great. When he asked for the room, their opinion, not ask the Congress, but ask the room only And then after you, ladies and gentlemen, have heard what the room thinks, and hopefully it's more and more crowded, then it gives you food for thought on how you would cast your vote.
What time we're gonna get a second and you can discuss that.
That's all, I'm done.
Do I have a second? Okay, it's open for discussion.
Where's the second come from?
Secretary Wilson.
I personally, if we're gonna do this, I personally would like to see the people very much involved, since we're doing it for them, or with them, or whatever. I'd rather do it with them than for them. Anybody else?
Any other comments? Bob?
I would like to suggest that as the teams come together and present their sentence or paragraph that they've perfected, that it gets posted to the website the same way the minutes do, and that way we can approve as posted and not have to read over all these different paragraphs the same way. Get it published, everybody can see in advance what we're doing.
That's a good idea. I take it a little bit further. If you put them on there so that people can write their comments after it,
Absolutely.
it would be very beneficial in making it much more efficient to get through it.
Yeah, good.
Yes, Senator Ballard.
Senator Battle, Brazos County. My comment there was, is how do we get them here?
Well, we got enough in this room to get started. The first thing we gotta do is start.
Well, you want to start now?
If y'all vote for this, we will.
We've got 15 officers in the room, there's probably 15 non-officers.
Can I see a show of hands of Texians here that are not in the government that would be in agreement with doing this way?
See all them volunteers?
That's right.
Good.
Excuse me? To fill in the slack, we compare two other documents, the executive branch with the senator or congressman.
Okay, Richard, Senator Wagner.
Are we going to take these pairs and let them make a presentation and then discuss it and decide what we want to do about it? Or are we gonna let them make that decision?
Well, they would do it up. We would also take into consideration comments coming in on the website, and then put it all together, bring it back, put it all together.
Okay, I just wanna know whether that's gonna be done or not.
Yeah. Everybody in favor of starting that process or that motion, signify by raising your hand.
It's unanimous from those sitting here at the table, including Mr. Berryman back there, so it is unanimous.
Yes, Susie, I see you.
Is she voting out there?
Yes.
Oh, I can't see her. So it was unanimous. Thank you all.
Now, start putting it together. You wanna do that now, or you wanna?
No, I don't think we have enough time to get into that. It's 4 o'clock, and I wanted to go. What's that?
First lady said it.
You want to get her?
Yes, sworn in.
No.
Oh, she got 2 minutes to speak?
Yeah.
Okay, this is Jarnicki. Are you in here? Yes, Mr. Jarnicki.
First Lady Jarnicki gave up her position for undersecretary today.
I'm sorry?
First Lady Jarnicki gave up her position as first lady for an undersecretary job.
That's true.
That's not the same thing as divorce.
I waited till she was outside to say that.
Smart man.
And that was a promotion.
Sound like smart.
If we're going to take this process up next month, we could advertise it when Mr. Brown sends out the invitation to the Congress session, that you come and have a part in reviewing our Constitution.
And there's something I forgot, because Ray was out of the room. We've got to address the 5th press release, and when we're gonna have a draft done, and when we need to have a meeting to review it. So Ray, you get to handle the mic again.
Dear Lord. God help us all.
Give me two.
Okay, are you asking me when possibly I could have a 5th draft available?
Correct, yes, sir.
Give me a week.
A week.
Yeah.
So by Monday, following the Saturday of next week, 14th, that's 21st, the 22nd, the 23rd, by the 23rd, we should have a draft in our hands.
Yeah, what I'll probably do is, like I did the last time, send you a part, and a part, and a part.
Okay. But the complete part, the last part will be by Monday.
By Monday.
It'll be international committee teleconferences and stuff.
She's a doctor.
Congressman Joe Fallon, Bryce County. So, question, if we are talking about major revisions to a constitution that is identical to the one that took founding fathers a month in solitude to create, how fast or what kind of process do we, foresee happening at a month time?
Well, I think it's going to be a slow and deliberate process. I think the point is that it has to be done. We will have the time to do it. We want to get it in place before we become a recognized republic again. And so I think that's our charge, is to get something in place before we have that recognition. And it might be good to have it in place by the time we start getting attention through the court.
That was my second question, which is, are we waiting for our revised constitution to go forward, or are we going to go forward with what we have?
We don't stop for nothing.
We're going to go forward with what we have. We can simply make the statement that we are working on revising it to truly be a constitution of the people. By the people. Ray, comment. No, I'm sorry, Mr. Ballard.
Senator Ballard, Brazos County. I was just gonna say, I was hoping, or at least I was kind of under the impression that we wanted to try to accomplish this by election time in September, so it'll have to go to the people.
That's correct. It has to be done by the Constitution. We're still under this Constitution right now. And the timetable is already set for what we gotta do. It would be nice if we had it ready for ballots in September, but I don't see that. I would say back then.
First of all, your greatest opposition, I'll tell you up front right now, is going to be me. Don't be surprised. Because number one, if you have a constitutional convention, it has to be represented by the whole. By the whole. So if it's slower, that's the better I like it. But it's still up to the people, like you're talking about. But your number one's going to be me. I'm telling you that right up front.
Well, Ray, the way I would see it is, we're gonna work on this part by part. And when we get it down to when we're ready to submit it to the whole body, we'll do so.
Okay, but when you say the whole body, I'm talking about all, because when you make your declaration, you're talking about taking in the New Mexico territory, the Colorado territory, and such and so forth, all the way up to the old territories. I don't see representation from the whole body, so don't try to establish a constitutional convention with a partial representation of the whole, and that's what I respect, because you're taking it to the people. And you're gonna have to be slow about this. And I know that everyone's urgent as far as these issues go, but believe me, this is a constitutional convention.
Okay, if being a constitutional convention, are the only participants allowed in that convention declared Texians?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We would, once we had it ready to present, we would have a convention like you're talking about with delegates representing so many counties and all up in Colorado, everywhere.
Absolutely, it has to be from the whole. That's it. That's the major point that I have in all of this, is that everything you do has to be you're saying of the people, by the people, for the people.
Right.
And make sure you've got representation from all the people.
That's correct.
Susie?
Then we would, by necessity, need to have our application for citizenship on the website where it can be downloaded, printed, or interactive and sent in, so that the people could understand the process of becoming a viable Texian citizen.
In addition to that, I think we need to have that available on the website, but we also need to make mention on the website that we will be revising the Constitution, and those that can be involved in it have to be Texians.
Exactly.
And make that available to everybody on the website.
I can make a banner for the front page, get involved in the Constitutional Revision Committee, and I can have it click, and it will be one of our contact forms if you tell me who to email those contacts to.
Yeah, what we're talking about now is at the completion, presenting it to the nation of the Republic of Texas. There's several of us have already set up conventions, delegate conventions. We know how to do it. They got rules and regulations just like we got rules and regulations on setting up a convention. That's no problem. You're talking about it, your friend.
My point was to raise the point about getting them involved, all the territories involved.
It's instant there.
It seems to me like we've had a constitution all of this time, and if we're going to reestablish the Republic of Texas, and we want representation, or we want to hear from everybody in the Republic of Texas, I think we should wait until we are recognized as the Republic of Texas, and then get the whole body of the Republic of Texas involved.
What do you mean by the whole body of the Republic?
Everybody in the Republic of Texas.
Everybody in Texas?
Establish get our government established, and then I think we have to have a special committee to meet and do that.
That's kind of what we're doing.
Yeah, but don't we need the input from everybody in the Republic that's interested in putting something in there?
We need the input. We need the input from every Texian in the Republic.
Well,
Uh-oh.
Last comment.
Uh-oh.
Is in formulating the Constitution, what you're gonna do is that representation comes from all around, and from the whole. But still, before it's approved, it has to be submitted to the people to vote for it.
Now, I got a question. Okay, we're saying that there's a problem right now if you don't put on the ballot any change in the Constitution as we now have it by September, that we will not be able to modify it until the following September. Am I correct? We will not be able to implement a change in it until the following September. Is that correct?
Yes.
No. Huh? 2 years. In other words, it will extend it out another year if we don't get it on
The
there.
whole process takes a year and a half.
Well, then, let me ask a question then about the Constitution. Should we revise that clause in the Constitution now to change that?
It won't change until the people have the delegation, the whole people have the delegation and approve it. We can make all the changes we want. Final deal is gonna be the people who will make it.
But what I'm saying is just to address that so that we can at least move this backward instead of pushing it further out.
Start that clock.
Start that clock.
One change today that we can't do anything for a year and a half, but at least we started that process.
The last time when we amended the Constitution in 2007, we actually started in 2006.
Fine.
And we had the amendments done and ready to post by the next election in September. We gave them 90 days is what it is, okay? That doesn't mean those were approved then. That has to go to the next Congress for them to approve, and then the people have to approve.
It's not an existing
The thing is, if you ain't got anything to vote on, you won't have to worry about it.
Yeah, what I'm suggesting is that we immediately start addressing that clause in the Constitution so that we can take care of that during this period. If we want to change that so that it's not a year and a half before you can adopt it.
Don't run off, Sally.
If you want to change it from a year and a half to 6 months or something like that, can you not do that? Start that process now so that we can bring the date back earlier for a final constitutional convention to address and adopt a new constitution. I guess I'm not very articulate. I'm not getting the point across.
Sounds like a way to do it.
I think it's a healthy reservation.
What are you doing back there?
We have somebody waiting on us to jump them.
Oh.
She needs to talk now.
Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, I had just clarification in my own mind. Our existing constitution, the way you're saying is if we make an amendment of any kind, we require that then be ready for the national vote in September and then be voted up again. So if we were to amend the Constitution today, to amend the Constitution so we would work on it earlier, it would not be approved for another year and a half anyway. We might as well go ahead and do this, because if we function, which we really should, there's no sense breaking the parameters of the Constitution in the sake of a Constitution.
Well,
And so it's going to take the same amount of time to amend the Constitution so you can work on it earlier as it would be to have a whole nother constitution ready to go.
Not quite, as I see it, okay? If you amend the Constitution now to say instead of a year and a half, if it's a year and a half, before you can have that convention and be able to vote on it. If you amend that to say it only has to be 6 months, and then that amendment gets passed, while we're working on the revision to, the major revision to the Constitution, when we're ready to submit that, we only have to wait 6 months instead of a year and a half. That's what I'm suggesting.
If I may, doing it the way Speaker Bullock is saying it, if we start the process to shorten the time frame today, 18 months from now, we can vote on it, and then that process is shortened. Meanwhile, we can work on changing the document over the next 18 months, get the prep work done, and in 18 months, we have a document we like. 6 months later, it can be good to go, rather than doing another year and a half.
Thanks.
Okay, is that what you were talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes we gotta be careful of, every one of us took an oath to defend this Constitution, and we can't all violate our oaths. You gotta be, what's that? Yes, Tom? Don't take it away from me.
I didn't think this was gonna take this long, Sally.
That's all right.
You opened up the can of worms.
Yeah, my concern is that 100 or less people are finally going to be voting on this. If we don't get this, we don't bring more Texians in. You have that proverbial chicken and the egg deal going on here. We need more chickens, but we need more eggs too. I think the website is the secret. I think, like I mentioned, a card. I also, on the way up here, was thinking about, as we put these press releases together, putting a little trifold brochure together, glossy, with some excerpts, with a little bit of explanation from the different press releases that Ray's been putting together, to whet their appetite to go to the web. And then a card too. In fact, we may be putting our own names on cards that promote the web. If we can promote the web, then we can show why we want to have a change in the Constitution. We can promote the Republic of Texas and its Constitution, and we can say, look at where we've arrived with the United States Constitution, and this is why we want to change it this way. When you get enough people to tie in, then on the web, you know what you're going to do. You're going to say, don't you want to be a part of this? Or you're just going to live under it without being a part of it. You know, it's that chicken and the egg thing.
Tom O'Halloran, oh, go ahead.
Are you leaving?
My concern is that there's a time essence.
Your name, please?
Joe Wormington, Ambassador to the Philippines. My concern is that there's a timely element, I think, coming. I don't know how critical the old Constitution is. Is there anything that can't be amended later, that could be gone into effect as it's been already, and then changed, because it would have to be changed ahead of time? I mean, there's a lot of things happening overseas and things that need to be addressed right now. If we wait another year and a half, we may lose out on a lot of the loss of funding and things that are happening right now through the change of government and the change of monetary systems. If we don't know what's going on monetarily.
Be careful.
So I haven't really studied, to be honest with you, I haven't studied the Constitution, but how critical is the old Constitution that can't be changed to get the thing moving? Is it too difficult to change later or not?
Well, I think, did you want to comment there, Mr. Wood?
I think Article 2 is where it is in the Declaration of Rights. Says the people can change their government or their constitution whenever they agree that that's what they want to do, because all authority and sovereignty resides in the people and not in elected officers. I think the restriction about having one Congress pass it, then another Congress be seated, and that one also pass it, is to limit the government's ability to change the Constitution. But if the people want to change it, they are not so limited. According to Article 2 of the Declaration of Rights. So there is a quicker way to do this. What that means is calling for the people to get involved. Now, the question is, where are these the people? How do you contact them and how do you motivate them and all those kinds of things? So we just, I think God will determine which process we use. But I'd be in favor of just notifying the people that we're about to open up the question of the Constitution and see how many of them are really interested. You can do that on the website. You can do that.
Start and see what happens.
Huh?
We just gotta see what happens.
Exactly. But it's not just one way, there are two ways.
To that end, can I create a button on the webpage on one of the side panels and mention that we're starting a constitutional revision committee? Click here to get involved. And who would that email go to?
Well, we're getting 100 hits a minute, so.
I know, that's okay. But who would gonna have a lot of questions? This committee should probably be run by a senator or a congressman. Who here should get the emails of people that want to get involved?
Secretary of State. No, that's really, well, in a way, yes.
Just to interject a technical point, we already receive people's emails through MailChimp, which is a plugin. And we could have another MailChimp about the constitutional revision.
Right, that's what I was gonna do.
And we don't have to respond to them, we just collect their names. And when we get enough names, we send a mass email to all of them at once saying, okay, we're gonna do this on a video conference, we're gonna do this on a teleconference on the phones, or whatever. It'd be best on video. And do it with high tech. You know, if we become the newest government in the world, let's be the most technologically advanced government in the world, where Congress can meet on a video conference and where the Constitution can be revised and amended through high tech.
Right, we've got that process ready to plug in. I just need a name. Who's going to get the notice that these people want to get involved? Should that go to you? Should it go to, who's going to drive the committee?
Senator Wilson, that's right.
That was my call, I wasn't going to name him, but.
I'd be willing to do it.
You want to do that? Okay.
Get involved.
Okay.
Well,
Don't forget that we need to advise people to get involved and be involved. They have to be Texans.
So again, it's a chicken and the egg. If you want to get involved, become a Texian.
Well, when the email comes in, it will state regarding the Constitutional Revision Committee, and you can address them and find out if they're involved in it, if they're Texian already. If not, you can bring them into that folder. It'll be real clear what the email is about.
do you not think the people that are already involved know more about it than get a microphone? No, I was just saying, don't you think that most of the people that's gonna be involved are already involved? The people that really study it, know what they want? Looks to me like all you're doing is opening a can of worms to a bunch of people who don't know what they want, and all they do is argue. And what's that gonna change? I mean, not most of the men who have been studying this know it more than anybody else that's coming in new.
and it's just gonna open up a lot of confusion in my mind. Is there anything that's gonna really prevent most of the things that happen? If we're talking about things that may be happening at the Hague, major things that need to be done right now, the timing element that's happening, with the change of money and the change of currency, and all the things that are happening in China and Russia and all these major things, we may miss out on the whole thing if you wait 6 months or a year and a half. Major changes happening biblically and historically and everything. And speak of historic generation, the Bible, and things like that. I think there's time elements involved we need to think about and pray about.
Well, I think what we're trying to accomplish here is get people involved. We are getting their attention by the number of hits we're seeing on our website. And to further enhance that, offer them the opportunity to be involved, be part of this shot that's going to be heard around the world, and participate. And I think we'd be making a mistake if we think we can rely on what we know based on the attendance that we have at these meetings, to rely on this small a group of Texians to draft the Constitution. Number one is, I think, our Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is going to be on our butts bad. And he's going to be denying us all.
Ada Brown. 2 questions. How are we, I'm always thinking this way, and I'm sorry, that's who I am. How are we going to ensure that the people who are having a say online are Texians? Is there a way to either password or verify these people against our list of citizens, number one? Number two, I'm afraid opening this up to online, once again, we've had moles in the past, and it's just a concern of influence and security.
Well, we don't want to get into verifying everything in the world like
I understand that,
our
but
neighbors.
if you say you have to be a Texian, then how do you enforce it?
I think you can put on the website, if that's what they want to do, is alert all Texians. If you would like to be involved with revising the Republic of Texas Constitution, check here or whatever.
Go ahead, Bob. I've got some answers here too.
Real quick, if I get a dozen names, I'll send them by email to Billy Ford and say, are these people Texians? Because he's the only one who keeps that record.
Well, yes, we've got to verify that they're Texian. Okay? They have to submit the paperwork. If they haven't submitted the paperwork, if they want to get involved, they're going to have to submit the paperwork. Now, if they are a mole that wants to come in as a Texian, I really don't care what they learn about what we're trying to draft in our Constitution, because maybe that'll convince them maybe we're right and they're wrong.
I'll take that.
Secondly, how can it hurt us for them to learn anything of what we're doing? We're doing the right thing.
But why don't we put, instead of putting it on a sidebar off to the side or small, why don't we make it a headline, number one, and number two, in that headline, offer them the paperwork that they can download and fill out an application to become a Texian, and then we've got it done.
Is the bill that we passed on becoming a Texian and the time frame, that's defined in that bill. Is that available on the website? Because we, remember about a year or two ago, we passed a bill about, we talked about Texian citizenship, and we got rid of the word citizenship, okay? And we said there's certain requirements that you have to become a Texian. And that timeline is going to change somewhere down the road where you're gonna have to be a non-Texian for 5 years, wanting to be a Texian before you can participate.
But that's reserved for after.
That's for holding office.
After recognition of Texas as the nation among the nations, then we announce Texas-wide on TV and everywhere else. You have 6 months to appear before a district justice and swear your allegiance as a Texian, because if you don't do it within the 6 months, then there's a 5-year period of, what do they call it, naturalization? But that doesn't apply here. Right now, if they're living on the land of Texas, they can become a Texian by affidavit.
But shouldn't we refer them to that law right now to encourage them to join now?
We can
instead of
include
waiting?
a copy in our contact, yes.
If there's not anything else, we'll move along.
That's just one more point. Just one more point. The people that live in Colorado and along the trail, they don't know if they can be a Texan. So
One's
somebody's got to
on
know.
my email list, no.
I know, but are they up in Colorado too?
Yeah.
Well, on the website, you probably should put a whole map coverage that we can, that they can distinguish if they live inside of those boundaries. Most people don't.
That's all on the website. Maps.
And I can make it real clear, when they click on the bright shiny
It's
banner on
Saturday
the
meeting,
front
did
page,
anybody see Saturday meeting?
a page where we can spell this out.
Okay.
Are they having car trouble outside? Is that what it is?
No, she's got a dog that she's transferred.
I don't know.
Tom,
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, I tried to get this going in the past and couldn't with the webmaster.
Yes.
With all your contacts and all, you probably have emails from all over, right? Do you not? All over Texas, different states?
Yeah, for Texians?
No, I'm just talking about people
I know.
out there, okay? So what we need, if we could get a contact there, I found out in the past that they have bulletin boards, electronic bulletin boards in different parts of the country you can put up, or I think you can have electronic bulletin boards.
All websites now, welcome to the 90s.
Are they websites?
Welcome to the 80s, I might say, Rich.
Okay, I'm very tech, man, I don't have any problem with that. But what I'm saying is, if we could send out information to those people in that area about what we're doing here in those different states that we don't have in to start getting people, representatives in those areas that know about our cause and whatnot, then I think we can start building as far as people in other areas of the Republic into our cause and support. But they have to know about it first. But if those people are out there and you have a contact, what I'm suggesting, somehow getting information out to those people, who knows what they'll do? We have to leave that up to God.
I know a guy that's got a radio show, and he'll be pitching this and promoting it. Steve O'Brien's got a radio, he can be doing the Republic of Texas radio, it'll be on the website.
Okay.
And yeah, we'll start spreading the word on this. We should probably also work at building alliances and relationships with Freedom Texas and these other groups that can all get involved and start merging our talent pool.
I had one other suggestion too on the website. The most current, like he was talking about his declaration, the most current thing up there of importance, can we change the color so it doesn't blend in with everything else? Is that possible?
We put it at the top.
You can't change the color? Can you highlight it? Just so it stands out more?
Not individually, no. It's not a custom website. They're templates where the menus are all of a certain color type of a thing. So,
Okay, while we're waiting to get Miss Jarnicki back in here.
She's not, she's gone.
No, I'm not. I said, while we're waiting, we need to discuss where our next meeting is going to be held.
Kerrville.
Kerrville.
I moved Bruce's house.
Come on, once, guys, please.
Susie Kamek, Bear County, District 3. I'd like to humbly suggest McQueenie.
Okay, we've got a suggestion for McQueenie.
Tin Cup and Cypress.
Is there any other suggestions?
Fredericksburg. They're ignoring me.
Fallon, Congressman Brazos, I suggest Tin Cup in Cypress.
Tin Cup in Cypress.
Mike,
You know,
want a carpool?
no. Any idea how much they charge? That wouldn't be bad.
We need to have some information about what it's going to cost us. Now, Cypress is on the north side of Houston, right?
Northwest side.
West side.
We go to her.
It's
They have
up-
live streaming.
It's up, what, 45?
Because I'm not going.
No, it's off 290.
Up 290.
Mike and I can walk.
Cypress?
Okay,
No,
any,
she said the McQueenie cost. Tin Cup's gonna cost.
More than that. Anybody else got any suggestions? Bring the money, we can go anywhere you want.
I brought this up the other night. What I like about McQueenie is we have an ally, a friend, and a great place. And if we ever get the money, we don't buy that place.
there's no parking, that's the problem. That's the only problem I see here, there's no parking.
After I win the lottery, Matt will throw on Carl's land.
We win.
Okay, is there any other suggestions? All right, well,
We'll probably need to check with Ron, right, just to make sure it's okay with him.
well,
I've already asked you, and please come anytime, unless he got something to say.
well,
Since I don't think it's.
what I'm going to suggest is that if you all are serious about the Tin Cup in Cypress, maybe you ought to take a look at what it would cost. And then we can have a joint conference call on Thursday evening to address that between the House and the Senate. Next Thursday, if you can get that time to us, if you can get that information. Is that okay with everybody? Meanwhile, Senator Ballard will be talking to the VFW.
I was gonna go out and ask him again.
Who's going to talk to the Clean Cup? Joe Bob?
Billy Bob.
Billy Bob. We have a meeting of discussions on advertising. Within the discussion with them for getting the space, I feel it appropriate to let them know that we're gonna have good placement, that our meeting will be held at their place. It'll be in a prominent place above the fold on the website. So we get some publicity out of that. It's not an advertising thing, but it'll help.
For my benefit, what is the Tin Cup?
Very
Dance
old
hall.
venue.
A dance hall. So there's no food there.
No, but there's.
You got a lot of restaurants around?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're Houston, you throw a stone into the restaurant.
It's a dance hall. And they've got chairs and tables that we can set up there.
Chairs, table, poles.
Any checks or Italian? Okay, so next Thursday, we'll have a conference call. And Joe Bob will bring information about Cypress. Susie and Doc will probably be on there well, I don't know, Doc, I guess you can be there as a guest if you want to speak again on behalf of Queenie. But we'll make a decision next Thursday. And if Mr. Ballard is anywhere near successful in convincing the VFW that they were wrong in what they did, he should be on there to speak again to the VFW. I'm sorry, you had your chance, too late.
I'm sorry, we had some friends break down out here in the parking lot and they wanted to go home and we had to jump their car.
Okay.
Anyway, I forgot what I wanted to say. Oh, I know. This position that I took, I'm sure you probably don't understand what it is, but I'm going to be providing you with places to get food storage, stuff for your health, which these guys do too. But the other thing I wanted to say doesn't have anything to do with that. It has to do with him. I want you to know he has absolutely presented himself professionally. He's knowledgeable. He doesn't get mad like I do. When he was doing these interviews, he's calm, collected, and he does a great job of representing you.
And you wrote that for you?
Hey, Sally, you didn't hear this, but we understand that this was a promotion from you from First Lady.
Mr. Ballard, Brazos County, I'd like to make a motion, we recess until next month.
Second. Or till next Thursday. Well, we didn't talk about Zoom, I'm sorry.
Write down that
So I'm gonna back up a second.
thing.
Okay.
Oh, God, you want me to spell that? Yes. Well, you can get close.
Never got around to talking about Zoom.
Yeah.
Now, there were many of you who have participated in this live video conferencing software that Senator Berryman, who's not here to speak about it anymore, but it only cost us $9.99 a month for a 25 caller limit, live video. It provides video that's fairly easy to use. The only thing I know is it doesn't work on Linux. According to John, he's had no success in trying to get on it with video. Okay, and you verify that? So it doesn't work with Linux, but it'll work with any Microsoft software. And it works with cell phones. So at $9.99, we bought it for a month, and I told him I'd pay for it if the Republic is not willing to pay for it. And have you passed a hat for money here?
Yeah.
I never donated.
Yeah, it is.
I owe you. Okay.
I'm good at that.
But
You had me busy.
We will try to use it next Thursday. You'll need to get an invitation. Now, the invitation will come from Berryman because he's the one who signed up for it. And it's limited to, like I said, I don't know whether it's actually limited to 25 callers or 25 computers can get on it. I'm not sure of that.
I believe it's 25 consecutive connections.
25 consecutive connections?
Concurrent.
Yes, sir.
I tried to get on the telephone side of it, and I couldn't get on. That was the Wednesday night. And I did get on Thursday night, but not Wednesday night.
But I didn't get on Thursday night.
It kept bumping me off.
I'm hoping that 25 connections ought to be adequate for us.
Hopefully not.
Yeah.
It'd be a great thing to get 40, 50 people.
Well, we really don't need video, so let's think about that. We don't need video for this. So maybe we should do it on your pre-conferencing call. So Ed will send out a notice of the free conferencing call, okay? We'll do it on free conferencing because you don't really need video.
Only on a Tuesday night.
All right. Okay, so that's resolved. Okay, we can get back to you now, Mr. Bauer.
All in favor, recess.
Who made the second of that?
Well, second. I did.
Bauer?
Well, second.
We go to the Lord, I just want to say how it has been a great honor to be associated with people that handle themselves under stress so well last month.
Amen.
And I'm very impressed with the character of you. And I thank the Lord for that. Because I know it's God working in your hearts and in our land. And let's go now to our Lord in prayer. Father, we thank you for this day and almost a sense of joy in your presence as we're come together. Father, thank you for protecting us through the day. We thank you for guiding us and providing for each of us in our own ways, in our own homes. Lord, continue your continued care over those who have struggles and things going on related to the events of our government. I pray that you would protect them. And Father, that we would always and only be a part of your will, that we treat people right. We pray and ask forgiveness of our sins. We give you the praise and glory for it. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
For the record, folks, as of 10 minutes ago, we had 5,400 web hits for the day, making it the second greatest, following only the New York Times Day.
Okay, well, that seems to be the end of it, folks. So if you're listening to this live, you can find the archive out at ustream.com/FBG Live. That'll have all today's events, all hours of it. If you're listening to this on YouTube or feel like listening to this on YouTube, it'll take about a day or so for me to transcode the whole thing. Just go to YouTube and search for FBG Live. There should be a complete index of it up on the Texas Republic website. That is thetexasrepublic.com. Well, thanks for listening, and, well, have a good day. Hey, free Texas.